There's that happy, peppy music, and we're back for another live stream. It's good to be here. Sorry that we missed last week. That's totally my fault. I just needed a break, and it was very badly needed. And I'm glad to be back. And it's good to see you guys out there, Ibby and Anchor and Bobbert and Angela. Hi, and
Hello.
Neil and Joe, and I know others will be coming in pretty soon. So great to be back. Really good to be here. Um, Today we're going to be talking about social media and recovery, and I think this is going to be a pretty good one because there's someone that knows a lot about it. Her name is Angela, and it's kind of interesting because I've been going through this deal actually for months now, where I just get so burned out on social media and goddamn almost anything, any app or means of communication where I feel I have to make some sort of instantaneous response or something. And it's just I don't know. Sometimes it just feels overwhelming, and so I've just been tipping my toe into Facebook here once in a while, and I find myself getting there and then needing to run away real fast. So
Yeah.
I'm just kind of venturing back into it very slowly, and what's really hilarious is I took this break. I don't even know for how long it was. Maybe it wasn't very long. I've kind of lost track of time, but I come back and there was a shitstorm brewing in the group
hmm
over the basic stuff about how debating about things. So anyway, Angela came up with this topic, and I'm glad she did because she does this as part of her real job life. So she knows what she's talking
Yeah.
about. Where do we go with this, Angela?
Well, I think we'll talk about a couple of different things. Most of this discussion is going to be around groups and either like Facebook groups or online forums. And so I thought I'd start with my experience as a online forum moderator because that's been part of my job for the last 9.5 years.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and it is the part of my job that I like least
That's
because yeah, it's hard. There's several people have commented in our Facebook group that it must be a thankless job, and it truly is. I
yeah.
mean, I know that yeah, Angela has a real life. Well, I don't know. I guess we could go into the different parallel universes and simulation theory, but that's not the topic this week.
No.
So. Yeah, so I moderate this online group, and it's a discussion forum, and it's mostly made up of men. I think there's maybe 3 women that participate in
Oh
it,
wow.
and yeah, and so it's very, very engineer
Okay.
oriented, and computer guys and all of that kind of stuff. And so it's in a topic area that honestly I don't have an emotional attachment to. And so
Mm.
that's what makes it a little bit easier to moderate that forum.
Mm-hmm.
But, I can say that in the last 9.5 years, forum moderation has definitely become much more difficult. And a lot of that has to do with, the algorithms for social media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
all of that. It's basically groomed people to be much more reactive and to react in outrage to just about everything. And so it affects, the forum that I moderate for a living. And some of the stuff that I've set up for that kind of moderation, I'm actually really, really no nonsense about it. I'm pretty strict with the forum moderation. But for the most part, I haven't had to do much since I set up some really clear guidelines that people could follow for the forum rules. And once I did that, people couldn't argue with me about whether they had or had not violated it. I could point directly to which rule they violated.
Mm.
And if they tried to get out of it and give themselves a certain exception or whatever, you just go back to which rule it was and that you're enforcing. And that's really helped out a lot. The other part of it is that other people in the forum got to, somewhat enforcing it as well. And so I didn't have to do as much because they took this is their forum, and they
Mm.
wanted to make it better. So they learned things like, when somebody was trolling, not to feed the troll. So if
Right,
somebody's
right,
saying something that that is intended to disrupt, that's
right,
intended to trigger or exacerbate or create conflict, that's what a troll is. and
right,
and so if you respond in any way,
right.
you could respond like, yeah, I totally agree, and that will feed the troll.
Yep.
And you can respond with, I can't believe you said that, that goes
Right.
against every moral I have in my body,
Uh-huh.
and that feeds the troll. So just pretty much ignoring them.
Is the only, yeah.
Yeah, and so they learned to do that, and so a lot of the people that came in, to troll, left because it wasn't exciting to troll.
Right. No one
They weren't
cares what they have
getting
to
a
say.
reaction. Yeah, and I'm happy to say that a couple of people actually ended up staying that started out as trolls. So
Oh,
one of them
really?
was
Okay, good.
they create their own names for this forum,
Uh-huh.
and he called himself Barney Badass,
Okay.
which Barney
This is
Badass,
a forum for engineers.
yeah, I know.
Okay, all right.
But Barney Badass is actually an old troll name, basically,
Ah,
that, yeah, from way back in the day, I think with blue screens and all of that.
oh,
And so, yeah, so this person didn't think that I would know that, I guess. And
oh,
so
I didn't
so
know.
came on just to troll, and then was around long enough that decided that they wanted to be part of the community,
Hmm.
and so calmed down. But it wasn't without a fight. There was a
Okay.
lot of trolling at first, and then there was a lot of messages to me directly, because
Mm-hmm.
I was enforcing rules, and so that's one of the
Oh,
things that
so mean of you.
happens. I know it's hard, but yeah, I was enforcing rules, and so one of the things I can do on that forum is put a alert on certain members that any of their posts have to be approved by me
That's
first.
smart.
So if somebody starts acting out and they've been told once, I don't always kick them out right away. Sometimes maybe they're having a bad day, or they don't quite understand what the group dynamics are, that kind of stuff.
Mm,
So they'll get a warning, and then if it happens again, then they'll be put on a moderation queue that all of their stuff has to come to me first. And that person didn't like it, and so I got some pretty strongly worded email
oh
about
no.
how can I do this, and my fascist controlling ways, and all of that kind of stuff. And so you have to, as a moderator, be pretty secure in either what your job is, or just yourself in general, because people who are trolling or who are having a mental health issue and acting out in this way,
Mm-hmm.
they will try to say or do whatever they can to make you feel like you've done something wrong by enforcing rules, and group norms, etc. So yeah, so I've gotten used to that, and fortunately, it doesn't happen very often in the troll capacity. What has become difficult is the whole society,
Right, right.
in that people just are angry all the time,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, and so having to enforce rules on language and things that a lot of these people are used to being able to either say already in Facebook or
Yeah.
in whatever environment that they spend most of their time in, has been difficult for some of them. Again, a lot of them are retired people that I work with on my forum,
Mm-hmm.
and so they're used to having a certain sense of authority where people respect them and they can say what they want. And so
Yep.
when some young whippersnapper, 46, tells them that they're violating, some sort of rule, yeah, it doesn't go well for in their mind. But it is the way it is, and fortunately, I don't have to worry about it that often because of the way that we've set things up.
Well, I
So
can see
one,
why it's important to have rules. I mean, okay,
yeah.
so like with us, we're an AA group, right? But
Mhm.
and people assume that maybe we're going to act in our Facebook group like we would in an AA meeting, but we don't, do
Right.
we?
No, no. Yeah. And I think we can talk about that a little bit,
Uh-huh.
and that I do think that people come into the group depending on how they get in. So if they come
Right.
in from, listening to your podcast, they might have
Uh-huh.
one idea of what the group's going to be like. If
Right.
they come in from an AA friend, they may have another idea, and
Right.
if they come in, and don't, know much about AA, then
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So we have a lot of different dynamics. I
Right.
think we have quite a few people as of late coming in that are frustrated with AA.
Right.
And so, think that this group is the place to voice their frustrations.
And there is
And
some room for that, isn't there?
right, there's some, but I think a lot of people have not read the group rules.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that I've changed in the last week. So I made
Mm-hmm.
some quick adjustments because
Mm-hmm.
You were taking some time to deal with some
Absolutely,
things.
please.
And
I might just retire from the whole damn thing, to be honest with you.
yeah, and I knew you were heading that way, so
Yes.
that's why I jumped in to help get us in a better direction, going in a better
Mm-hmm.
direction where it's not all of you anymore. There's lots of people that want to help,
Yeah.
and that can help, and they just don't know how or haven't been told what the best way to do that is. And so tomorrow we're going to have a a moderator meeting for people of the AA Beyond Belief sobriety Facebook group,
Mm-hmm.
And talk about that. So I have a bunch of stuff that I'm going to suggest that we do. Some is some like group rule revisions so that it's very clear what the rules are. I've already set up that anybody trying to join the group in the last day and couple of days will need to check that they agree with the rules before joining. So they'll have to have at least read the group rules before joining the group, and I don't know that everybody had to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall doing it myself, actually.
Yeah,
So,
no, I didn't. I
so
didn't.
yeah,
I was very open. I was like, I had
yeah,
it set up
you were
that
just
all you had,
excited. Yeah.
yeah. If somebody knew someone in the group, they would be automatically admitted,
Mm-hmm.
and I just assumed that people would behave themselves. And
Yeah.
I also the group kind of grew kind of fast for a little while, and it was and you were getting a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
that from, like you said, from different phases of their development, from different areas of
Mm-hmm.
different walks of life and so forth. And they were different in that when the group first started, it started because back in 2014, me and RJ and excuse me, she started the conference and damn it,
Pam or Dorothy?
Dorothy, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We started the it was the WAF Central Coffee Shop, which is now
Mm-hmm.
the secular AA coffee shop. So and that was going really good for a long time, and it was started from the people who basically from the list that we gathered from the conference in Santa
Mm-hmm.
Monica. So there's about maybe 300 or 400 people in the group, and it didn't really grow that fast or anything. But I used to post there pretty regularly, and then when I started AA Beyond Belief, I was posting our podcast episodes there and our articles. And at that time, there was a time where somebody was really upset with my podcast, didn't like them,
Yeah.
and was arguing about them and stuff. So I said, well, hell with that. And so I left that group and I started the AA Beyond Belief Facebook group just as a
Mm-hmm.
place to post the articles from the website and the podcast episodes so that people could read about them and talk about them. And it would be okay for me to post there without seeming like I'm some sort of promoter or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it was started. But then it grew into something completely different. So now it's, most of the people in the group probably aren't even aware that there's a podcast or a website. And
Yeah.
there are people that are really more interested in finding a secular path to recovery. And Alcoholics Anonymous, I think, is why most people are in there, I'm
Mm-hmm.
assuming. And so it's become more like a support group, which is good, and I'm happy to see that. But it has certainly evolved and changed directions. And then since this growth that we've had, which is tapered off now, but like you say, it's just a lot of different types of personalities from different walks of life and different experiences, and sometimes there's some conflict.
Yeah. And I think, recognizing that is helpful because I think some of the conflict comes from having different expectations of
Yeah,
what this group is. And
yeah,
so, we talked a little bit about people expecting it to be like AA. And so, a lot of us, would prefer a hands-off thing because that's what we're used to in AA, and that,
Yeah.
people, come in and sometimes they act up, but, you just try not to feed the troll and try to
Right.
be a good example, and they come around, but that doesn't work in the online environment,
Mm-hmm.
and particularly nowadays.
Right.
And so we do have to have some strong moderation in the group, but moderation with an awareness that the majority of us aren't there because self-regulation is a strong point for us.
Right.
That's precisely why we need help. Um, and so so having an awareness of that, is helpful, because people will act out sometimes and lash out sometimes, and so if we're aware that can be part of it, then the rest of the people, who are part of the group, can be calm as well and not
Yeah.
necessarily respond emotionally to whatever is put out there. And I think some of it comes from, like I said, people coming into the group thinking that it's either going to be like, your podcast,
Mm-hmm.
or thinking that it's going to be like AA, or thinking that it's going to be the opposite of AA.
Right. Right.
And so when they post something that's negative towards AA and they get a response from people that, and sometimes it can be something just as simple as that's not my experience, they'll act out then, and feel that it's critical, someone being critical of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it turns into, a big argument. And so I think that, by going through the rules that are stated already, and determining, do all of these still apply to this group? Has the group purpose changed? Is there a different way we want to talk about the group, or to state what the group purpose is, that's more accurate to where
Yeah.
the group is at as a whole?
Yeah.
That would be helpful, and it will help with forum moderation, because the moderators will know what they're looking for, and then also provide some tools and things that will be more helpful in letting people weed themselves out,
Yeah.
either before they get here or after they've got here, and
Yeah.
determining if this is the group for them.
Yeah,
So one
because
of
there's
the
nothing wrong with it. They might not like it. If they, because
Yeah,
I know there are people in the group who don't like AA at all. They absolutely cannot stand AA,
yeah.
which I think is fine if for someone not to like AA. My question is though, then why do you go to a forum for people that are in AA?
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. And I think some of it is that, either they haven't had the experience of being able to say the stuff that they're saying.
yeah,
And so they feel like this would be a good place for that. And in some
yeah,
ways, depending on how you phrase it, it
that's true
can
too.
be. So, I think some of the going over, changing, some rules or guidelines will also, help people be able to determine, if what they're about to write is is a
Yeah.
helpful thing, is it helpful to them, to others, be able to take some responsibility, for their
I always
own
thought if you just
things.
leave it to your own personal experience and
Hmm.
you use comments like that way you can't really argue someone's own personal experience, and you could say that I had this experience, yeah, where I was
Hmm.
treated this way at a meeting and it hurt and I'm angry about it or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's one way of doing it rather
Hmm.
than maybe telling someone else that their way is the wrong way or something, that,
Yeah.
or like someone, here's an example. Someone, because we have all different perspectives. We could all be atheists, and every single one of us work the program differently. Some people loving steps, some people not loving steps. So like, we could have
Hmm.
someone go in there and ask a question about a step or something, right? And other
Hmm.
people say, "Okay, I'll help you. Here's how I see that step." Blah blah blah. And then someone else says, "God damn those steps! Those steps are written by Jesus or whatever, and
Yeah.
they're bad."
Yeah. And so I think some of it is people, possibly us providing some examples of phrasing might be helpful for some people, because it is true that not everyone is aware of, um, commenting on someone's content rather than the person. If you're going to respond to something in a critical way, what are you responding to? And oftentimes they'll respond to the person, and then that turns into name calling, rather than whatever their content is, what they've said. And so helping with some examples of that, I think would be something that we can do. And also, what the difference is, in insults, type of insults. And I think, yeah, the majority of us try to share what our experience is. And so how do you respond to somebody's experience in a way, that is respectful? And if people have those things in mind, when they're looking at it, hopefully that will help with some regulation, self-regulation. But we'll see, we'll see. So some of the stuff that I use for my the group that I do professionally is we have some guidelines that say that we reserve the right to remove posts or to ban anyone who willfully violates the forum rules. And you have that under moderating, but it's said about lightly moderated. And I think that that's still the idea. We don't want to have it be that that people feel like they can't talk about anything, but I think that we do need to have guidelines on how to talk in an appropriate way for a group like this. There may be some groups that that's not a problem for, or my feeling is the majority of it is that people have other groups they belong to where that language is part of the group, and that way of interacting with other people is kind of part of that. And so they sometimes bring it into this space as well, and it's not an appropriate space for that. Another thing we have on mine is that to be friendly and polite, and that we'll not tolerate personal attacks, insults, rudeness, or inflammatory posts. And so inflammatory posts are usually things that are said or written just to cause a problem, so troll-like behavior. We also suggest that people avoid bickering or arguing for sport, which can happen a lot.
Yeah.
And that it's not a forum for a politically charged debate.
Yes.
We also say that people need to avoid topics that already have a long list of Democrat or Republican talking points, or that specifically name politicians. And that the big one that I think is will be hard for some people is do not argue with the moderator's decision publicly. If you feel
That's nice.
if you feel a decision should be reconsidered, send a private note via the contact form,
Yep.
or messenger or whatever.
Yep.
And we do have it in our Facebook group, and we'll probably continue it, that you can contact individual moderators or administrators, admins, regarding anything on it. And so if you feel that one of them has censored you in some way and you don't feel that it's fair, you can contact one of the others, and then we can talk to each other, because there will be times when that will happen, because it could just be that someone's having a bad day, and they see that someone has marked that admin needs to be, admin action needs to be taken. And so they look at it, and maybe they think that it's rude as well, and so they just erase it. And it perhaps maybe wasn't. It was just that, it triggered them in some sort of way. And so being able to talk to each other about that and make it that, an awareness that we know that mistakes are going to be made, right. that should be a little bit easier to keep admins around as well. But yeah, talking about that and talking about self-awareness, I've talked before about in the past having a job where somebody sent me an email that said, do you know where such and such file is? And I read that as you misplaced the file, you're incompetent. And I'm like, they're accusing me of losing the file. They don't think I can do my job, and I don't have to put up with this, and I'm leaving, I'm quitting. And so that was just, it happens a lot in text, that
Mm,
or type, that you don't always read it correctly, and
yeah.
so that can help them with admins as well, that you just read it incorrectly, and sometimes it is intended,
Oh
but
yeah. Yeah.
being aware of your own bias towards that is something that we need for forum moderation, is to know that. One comedian I remember seeing a while ago was talking about it in the form of texting back and forth to people, and that she texted a friend, and the person didn't use any punctuation.
Uh-huh.
And so the friend responded saying, how are you, my friend? But this person read it as, how are you, my friend?
Oh my
and
God.
it
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
wow, that's really harsh, and so keeping that in mind as well, that, sometimes there's some little things like that. So being
Yeah.
able to moderate, our own reactivity is essential, not only for people who are being moderators for the forum, but just for people in the forum in
Hmm.
general. If we can remember that's part of our responsibility as being part of this community,
Right.
then that'll be a little bit easier. But the awareness that Facebook has created an algorithm that prefers, while Facebook itself may not prefer that, the algorithm is attracted to very strong words, and lots of exclamation points, and excitement type
Right.
stuff, and that's usually in strong or outraged language, and so it feeds us more and more of that, and so it gets us to the point where if anybody has anything that we deem negative to say about something we've said, then we go into outrage. And
Something we often forget too is that the Facebook, for sure, is designed for them to sell advertisements.
mhm,
So they want to keep our eyeballs on their forum as much as possible. And they've probably studied like
yeah,
human behavior, and they know, hey, if we keep these guys all charged up and angry,
mhm,
they're going to be
mhm,
looking at all these ads and jumping on, and so I mean, it's a
yeah,
business, and we're
yeah,
it's like it's not free. I mean, we're paying for it with our
yeah,
I don't know what it is, our peace of mind.
yeah, pretty much.
Hey, can you guys
So,
hear me better now? They were having a hard time hearing me, and I looked over, and my phantom power was off, which is what I need to power my microphone, and so I turned that on, and I cranked up the gain quite a bit, and then I also turned on some audio enhancements on StreamYard. So hope good, it's much better now. Okay, I need to learn how to use the microphone better. I was
mhm.
noticing I did a podcast interview with a guy yesterday who has the very same microphone as me, and boy, he sounded good. And I was like, damn, what's wrong with my with me? I don't know how to use it. Anyway, sorry for the interruption. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Glad that we got it fixed, because I don't have anything that can change my volume.
What's
I
hilarious? What's hilarious? You always sound better than me. And I have spent a fortune on this freaking microphone. You sound so much better. Anyway, Cliff said, I don't know if Cliff said, so are admins unpaid babysitters? Well, I wouldn't say that. I would say that admins are necessary. That if
Right.
that you create a group for a
Mhm,
purpose, right? And whoever creates the group has a right to decide what purpose the group is. And then as
mhm,
people join the group, they can maybe the purpose might evolve, and they can decide what the purpose should be. But
mhm.
if your group is for a purpose, and then you want it to be for that purpose, and then you have other people that are taking it in a different direction, then you have a right, I think, to moderate, and you have an
Yeah.
obligation to do that for the people who want that particular purpose. So let's say that we have a group that is for people who are looking for a secular way to understand AA, or to deal with
Mhm,
AA as a secular person. But
mhm.
then all of a sudden you have people that are posting a lot of stuff about like how bad the Catholic Church is, or how bad, and it gets into all this other area that's not really
Yeah.
even related to AA. Might be related
Mhm,
to atheism or something, and even the political aspects of atheism, but not
mhm,
necessarily with Alcoholics Anonymous. So all of a sudden
mhm.
the group is going in a different direction. And I think the moderator has an important role of bringing it back to its purpose. It's
Yeah.
not like an AA meeting. Like, an AA meeting, we're used to crazy people popping in and out from time to time, and they're saying all
Mhm,
kinds of crazy stuff, and we sit there politely and listen, right? And then
mhm,
they go away. That's
mhm.
not how Facebook is.
No, no, it's not how it works.
No.
And so, yeah, we have an obligation as part of the community to moderate what's happening there. And we do have this group of rules. I think that, people just haven't looked at them or aren't aware of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll just need to, find a way. Like I said, I think that creating some questions that people need to check off before they join the group, showing that they've read
Mm-hmm.
through each of these and understand, will be helpful, because, not only will they then know whether this is a group for them or not, or they'll
Yeah.
have an indication that, oh, okay, this is, not what this is about.
And it's totally okay if they
Etc.
find that, if
Yeah.
they figure out,
And,
hey, I don't like this is not my deal. I hate AA, or I don't even want to think about it and the way these people. That's fine.
right.
There's plenty of Facebook groups out there that do all kinds of stuff.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of the things that, we came across this week, was somebody who seems to be having a hard time and was posting about it frequently. And then when people would offer this person some suggestions, they would go off on them. And there was some, abusive language and just, a lot of reactivity.
Yeah.
And so one of the things, that I did was to respond to them with, kind of what this group is about, and letting them know that they did violate, the anti-AA section of our rules, that this is not an anti-AA Facebook group. And then I gave them, some information on a group that is much more
Right.
about that. It's not the main thing for this group, but
Right.
that's part of it, And so I had contacted the person, because they're part of our group
Mm-hmm.
as well. But I contacted them just to make sure, and said something along those lines, that I thought that this was an important thing for people to be able to discuss if they feel they've been abused or taken advantage of in AA. I don't want it to be, that nobody can say anything anti, or
Right.
it's just the way that you say it and what's the purpose of your sharing it.
Right.
And this person wasn't looking for
No,
help
no.
with
They
it.
they they they
And
were
so,
done with AA a long time ago. I know them.
yeah,
They were
yeah,
totally finished and done with AA. In fact, they
yeah,
belong to other groups that are fiercely anti-AA, and I had
yeah,
to leave those groups because they weren't nice to me. But
yeah, yeah.
I can't remember the woman's name, and I have great respect for her. But
Hmm.
she did a movie about sexual harassment in AA.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and it is a serious problem, no doubt about it.
Hmm.
Absolutely a serious problem. But
Yeah.
she hates AA, and she's like on a mission to let everybody know how bad it is. And she's got
Hmm.
these Facebook groups and so forth where people join, and
Hmm.
they think it's the worst thing in the world,
Hmm.
and that's all they ever do is talk about that. And he
Yeah.
comes from that world. And
Yeah.
Monica Richardson, that's right, Joe Bob, Monica Richardson. And I have nothing against Monica, believe me. I
Hmm.
used to listen to her podcast actually every week. I listened to it, and she would do it on Blog Talk Radio, and people would call in. I've often thought I'd call in. I've even asked her to be a guest on this one, but
Hmm.
she's pretty high up there, I guess. But anyway, yeah, that group is so anti AA that
Hmm.
it's a different level, and
All right.
and I respect that. Fine, go do
Hmm.
your thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I agree. And so that's why I contacted Bobby C to see if I could post, him as a contact in his group, so that because I didn't know anything about this person. I am not in the world of anti AA as a culture, you know, um, and so I was trying to give them an option, so that they obviously had some pain that they were dealing with,
Hmm.
and I think that their problems or issues, and should be addressed and can be addressed, and that they can share that and work on that.
Hmm.
But that's not what they were trying to do
No.
within our group. And so, yeah, so they were then put on a monitor system that their posts would need to go through the admin
Hmm.
queue
Hmm.
before being posted. And when the person figured that out, then there was some really nasty,
Yeah.
strongly worded emails
Strongly worded emails.
sent.
Oh, I hate
And
those.
so, yeah, and so it was obvious that this person was not looking to be part of our group.
Hmm.
They were just looking to rage. And while I'm totally against raging against the machine, there's a different group for that as well. And
Right.
so trying to point people in the right direction. So I think that it'll be good, with our group rules, to have a couple of different groups, and a slight, description of these groups, so that if somebody is looking for that, if that's where they're at in their recovery right now, that they're just in a lot of pain, they've either
Yeah.
recently been hurt from a sponsee situation or a group situation where they felt rejected, that they, have a place that they could go, so that, they find the help that they need, or the community that they need. And if, they're in a different place, and they're open to, the kind of community that we're trying to build,
Mm-hmm.
they're welcome there as well.
Yeah.
And so I think this will be helpful,
I like
to
Cliff's
go through this
idea. Cliff says,
process. Yeah.
Cliff says send them to Yelp and give AA a bad review.
No doubt. No doubt.
That'll teach them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then AA will change because nobody wants a bad review on Yelp. Yeah. So that's what we should have done in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit about what we're looking at doing, as far as the AA Beyond Belief Facebook group, and trying to give people some understanding of kind of what goes into moderation, because there's going to be some people that are still going to be upset. One of the difficulties that we've had with that group thus far, is that, sometimes people mark things and they're offended by almost everything other people post,
Right.
particularly Mark. He has a way of triggering, people easily. Right. And he's so good at it that Facebook takes its own actions,
right.
Against Mark. And so we've talked about that previously. But when I was looking at, some of the admin tools that are provided for Facebook admins, one of the things they have is like a group quality section that talks about the different things that they've taken moderation in our groups on. And so, they say that the violations don't put our group at risk. So that's kind of nice. Because there are some things that people do in some groups that can put the group at risk, whereas, Facebook can say you can't be on here anymore. Fortunately, that's not something we've had to worry too much about. We've had, I think, in the last, since March, we've had 2 things that Facebook has taken action on its own.
On its own.
And so,
and weird too, because they just picked something up in their algorithm completely incorrectly. Right. Like they don't understand sarcasm or whatever.
No. And so, sarcasm is difficult. And so that's the thing, is that it's the algorithm is picking it up. And so,
all they picked up was Mark hates Canadians or something like that.
Yeah, hate speech against Canadians. Which who knew was a thing. But and so, that's something that Facebook, does on its own. But people need to know that, we're not necessarily going to take action just because they're personally offended by something that somebody posts.
So what about moderators who might not agree on things? Because here's an example. So for a long time, I was just kind of lackadaisical, just throwing people out every once in a while. But then we got these other people come in to moderate, and they would help. And so there was one guy who took down a post, and all it was some people who were advertising a big book meeting.
Right.
Which I thought was okay, because there was a time when I was an atheist and in Alcoholics Anonymous, but still had some use for the big book. I didn't see anything offensive with it, but he thought that it was outside of the bounds of the group.
Right. Yeah. And so I think that going through the rules in the moderator meeting will be helpful with that, so that they can see, what falls into that and providing some examples. So something along those lines would not normally be something that I would, remove, because
it's kind of funny, but there were some younger people. I think it was actually a young person's group in Florida.
Yeah. Right.
I think they're like around the Panhandle area in Florida, and they were secular, but they liked the big book. And I know that's crazy for some people to understand, but I understood it. I was okay with it. But other people were like, "How the hell can you read the damn big book?" And I understand that a lot of people have strong feelings about it and do hate it.
Yeah.
And these people might grow to hate it. I did.
Mhm. Yeah. And but according to your guidelines on there, that wouldn't be something that you
No,
would remove.
no,
And so I think that's another case of even moderators not necessarily understanding
understanding what the
what
rules are.
the rules are, and perhaps what the purpose of the group is. And
And sometimes I
so
wonder
yeah.
too if people even understand what the whole idea of a secular AA meeting is,
Hmm.
or how AA is structured,
Yeah.
and all that. Because a lot of the arguments or disagreements seem to be about things that really don't matter. Because um, that's what drives me crazy about debating in
Hmm.
AA. Because
Hmm.
your group can do whatever it wants to do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And, and again, I think with the online thing, having a group like that posts, a big book study is fine. And that we also need to help the culture of our group there understand that, you may not like the big book. It may be something that, that personally is, you're not a fan of, or, you could be like me that, yeah, there are some hurtful things in there. I don't think it's, the best towards women, and just quite a few things that I don't particularly find it useful.
Yeah.
But I can say that in a way that is not hurtful to other people,
Mm,
that doesn't attack the person, that if I feel I need to share it at all. Mostly on things like that, I don't make a comment because it's not something that's useful to me, and I
right.
try to only comment on things that I have experience on that I think will be helpful. And there are times when I do get frustrated too. And early on, when I came back to Facebook after being gone for a couple of years and started, joining this group and the secular AA coffee shop, I
Hmm.
was I was offended quite a few times by people,
Mm,
that
mm,
I was just like, I can't believe that they're talking in that way,
hmm.
and that, there were people who would attack other people.
Hmm.
And so, so yeah, so it was very frustrating to me. And so I had to learn, like with that group in particular, that wasn't strongly moderated.
No.
And so I came over to this one because I felt that it was a little
Hmm.
more, open and kind.
It was,
And
wasn't it?
then
For a long
it
time, it
was,
was.
yeah. And we also need to probably take into consideration that this last year has
Mm,
been extremely difficult on a
it
lot of
has been.
people, and a lot of people in a way where they weren't that into Facebook. They weren't online that much. Most of their world was
True.
outside of social media, but it became the center of their universe because it had for the majority of us. And so some of them don't have the experience of being part of, groups like this, online groups, the extensive experience with social media. And
Mm,
so there's still, some learning that needs to be done. And then just the consideration of the stress that everybody is under, and is recovering from. I think for some of us, I've been just barely above functional depression myself. And there are days when yeah, I'd look at the group and be like, yeah, I can't
uh-huh.
even, and I don't even like saying that phrase, I can't even. But there have been days like that. And so the awareness that, a lot of us are dealing with that and have off and on through this. There's quite a lot of people that are mourning right now that have lost loved ones. And
Yeah.
so sometimes they'll come online and they'll go off about something, or they'll see something and be outraged by it. And it might not seem like a big deal to most of us, but and to them on a different day, it might not have seemed like that big of a deal. But they're often acting out something else that they feel out of control of, in their life. And then it comes out as, I can't believe this person said this in this group, and you guys are horrible people because you're not doing anything about it. And AA sucks and you all suck, and all of that. And that happens too. And being aware that, yeah, those things are going to happen, giving people a chance to, recognize that, hey, maybe I was having a bad day and should not have posted, that you're all going to go to hell, that kind of stuff, is part of, I think, the community that we're all,
Yeah.
wanting to be a part of. So it's someplace where we can go and share what we're doing in recovery, sometimes, what we're struggling with, sometimes, new triumphs, like, I didn't have this online community when I got sober, but I probably would have started posting things like, "Woo! I have car insurance and registration at the same time. I'm a grown up," and and so I love stuff like that because I'm like, yeah, that's right. I went to the dentist. That kind of thing. As well as I've just lost my job and I don't know what I'm going to do. And my roommates are depending on me with this month's rent, and and just stuff that are new life things. And then for people who've been sober a long time, changes in life that are happening. I went to a meeting where the topic was on Josie's Josie's meditation for the day. It was yesterday, and it was basically death. And are you afraid of death? And and so it wasn't a real upbeat discussion, but it was a good discussion because it's true, we don't talk about it that much. And so I think that's something that particularly people who've been sober a long time, probably it would benefit them to be able to just talk about what their thoughts are on that, and then help some of us that we think that we may have some time, but truth is you never know. And it depends on where you're at in the simulation and all of that. So yeah, but those kinds of discussions, I'd like for it to be open to all of that, but that we learn to share in a way similar to the way that we do in meetings, but with the knowledge that it's not going to be that way because that's not the medium that we're in. It's a different beast, and so we can't just be that we hope people will regulate themselves and figure it out, because there's too many people that are in that setting at one time, and so it's just not a possibility. We're not all that well at the same time, and so we need to have some of this stuff to help create that community, and we need people who are willing to help with that, that are aware of their awareness, so that we can keep that going.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Joe was asking about the conference, the European Secular AA Conference, and that's actually going to be, I'm going to pull up the post.
Yeah, that's next. Is it next weekend?
That's coming
up.
I
think it's next weekend. So not like right now or tomorrow.
Yeah, it's June 19th.
June 19th.
So I'll post a link to the information about that.
Yeah.
And I got some emails to look at on that too. I feel I've been avoiding emails and crap. And I put together this flyer, and you think, oh, I'm gonna put together a flyer. It's no big deal, and it isn't. You can put a flyer together in 5 minutes, but God, there's almost all kinds of crap that happens after you put together the flyer. So that I've kind of ignored, and I need to kind of look at and see what they want me to do. I don't know what they want me to do. I'll wake up at, like, in the middle of the night. It'll be like 3:00 in the morning or something, and my phone is going buzz, 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 and it's all these WhatsApp messages from Europe, and I just turn my phone off.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And there's some stuff that that can be done to help with with figuring out the stuff that you can and do want to be able to do, and then delegating to other people or letting them figure it out, and so even with this week, I stepped up. So
I'm sorry. Yes, you did, and thank you so much for that. I do appreciate that, and other people did too, and I do appreciate that. And I'm really bad about even asking for help, and I think I need to do that. I was talking to this guy yesterday. He has a podcast called The Recovery Elevator, and it's a recovery podcast, and he's been doing it about as long as me. He started off in 2014. And he's built this incredible community around his podcast, just much like ours. We have a great community too. I don't think it's really around the podcast, but it's a great community. And anyway, he had listeners, like I often do, who love the podcast, would write in, and he got them to volunteer to help with the podcast. So he'd have like people that would do show notes. He has people who will help with the editing of the podcast. So he has like an entire team of people who help him with the podcast. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. And then what he did is, this is totally like anti what AA would do, but what he did, so he started this whole community, and then he said, okay, if you want to belong to this community, it's like $25 a month.
Mm-hmm.
which, isn't that bad. If you go to AA meeting every day and you put a buck or two in the basket, you're going to pay more than $30 a month probably. So I don't know. So he did that, and he's really built up an amazing community. It's not like he's getting rich or anything, but he's got a good podcast, and it's manageable. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like driving him crazy where I'll go like off on a tangent where that's all I do is push, and then I crash. So
Right.
yeah, it's like, yeah, Ibby says she wants to help and I should just take her up on it. So yeah, Ibby, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do. And there's no
Yeah.
reason, especially if people enjoy this, hell,
Mm-hmm.
come on. Come on,
Yeah.
come on. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think they just need to know what would be helpful.
Yeah.
And so maybe writing out, the different things that you have to do to put
Yep.
on, one
And
of these
who might
things.
do it?
And
There's a lot of talented
yeah,
people out there.
there are,
You know,
and some of them who can also make flyers for
flyers,
some of
absolutely.
your other
Not only can they
things.
make a flyer, they can talk to everybody about the flyer afterwards.
Right. Yeah. Or they can put, guidelines on, okay, I'm making this
Whatever.
flyer and then this is where it is. And if you have an issue with it, you get
Yeah,
to change it.
right.
So
Right.
yeah, so there's lots of things that can be done. But,
Yeah.
I understand that, when things get to be overwhelming, it's hard to be able to do the steps,
Oh, I
the
know.
steps. But to take the little steps to try to work your way
I'm
out.
just
And I
starting
think,
all over again. I just realized I
yeah.
looked at my calendar and I said, "Oh wow, I didn't know it's been that long, but it's been like a month since I posted an episode." And I've had all these people writing me wanting to know when their episodes are going to be posted. I'm like, "What's wrong with these people?" It's like, "Oh,
Mhm.
well, I see," because it was like 2 months ago when I talked to them. I had no
Yeah.
idea how much time had gone by. I don't even know what I've been doing. I guess
Yeah.
just been living regular life, I guess. But anyway, so I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah.
kind of going on a tangent. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about social
No,
media.
no. Well, I mean, some of it is
Yeah.
because, a lot of, what you're going through right now is overwhelmed because of social media, and some
Social
of
media
it's
plays a
because
big part
of
of it.
groups, and, yeah. And so
Yep.
this is, the main stuff that I can talk about is, what I have experience with,
Because I did
which
reach
is,
out to you and Joe, and
yeah,
I said, I'm leaving
moderation.
this. I'm leaving this Facebook group.
Yes. Yes, you did. Yeah. And so, we have people that are willing to help with it. And so we can figure out, there were some people that were very angry, and I think, wanted the group to be something different than it is.
Right.
And they'll be able to form their own group.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, there's plenty of room for that. And that's kind of how AA meetings, change and evolve, and,
Oh, you ain't
new ones
kidding.
start as well, is that, people get ticked off because whatever meeting they're at isn't what they want it to be, or they have an
Hmm?
idea of something they think would be better. And so they create their own, and people can do that with,
Hey,
Facebook
that's
communities
what
as
that's what I
well.
did here. Me and Jim
Yeah.
and Casey, we said,
Yeah.
I'm sick of this crap. These people give me a hard time. When we
Yeah.
started our own
So we're
group.
going to go over here. Yeah. And
Yeah.
start one. And yeah. And then, those who want to stay, will be revising the rules,
Hmm.
and, talking about different ways of posting so that you can, still continue to share your thoughts and feelings and be part of a community, and do it in a way that's healthy and contributes, rather than trying
And
to,
that whole thing
be
about community
destructive.
too is actually very important for if
Yeah.
you're in recovery, and especially in this day and age where you can't really get out and see people. And Facebook and social media is a really valuable tool. It can be when used
Mhm.
properly to build a supportive community.
Yeah.
And that is one of the most essential ingredients to recovery is
Right.
having other people around you who are doing the same thing and are in your corner, and having that
Hmm.
community is what really is so valuable. So that's why it's so important. I can see to, okay, if we're going to have a recovery community,
Hmm.
which is really a valuable thing to a lot of people who are
Hmm.
struggling, then we
Yeah.
need to make sure that it's a healthy one,
Yeah, as healthy as we can be,
as healthy as we can be, considering who
and
we are.
right. Yeah, and, and helping each other, and, being supportive of each other, and so, yeah, so that's one of the things with my group, in that, don't argue with a moderator's decision, publicly,
Mm,
because, that then, brings down the group as a whole into fighting amongst each other and arguing about, when things are okay and when they're not. And so, taking it directly to the moderators or moderator that has taken action is the best way. And there's been a couple of things where, I was hasty on, and then I recognized that and apologized, and we were able to move on. Most of the time I'm not. I did make a mistake once, but no, that's not right. I was mistaken on that. Yeah. So I feel like this week has been stressful. There were, like I said, lots of angry texts and messages. But I think ultimately it was a really good thing, because it has made us aware that there are some changes that need to be made, both, for the community at large, and also for you to take some things off your plate so that, you can continue to grow and thrive. And then people have stepped up who are willing to do that and who want to be part of making it a healthy community. And so I'm looking forward to being able to make those changes and to spread out the load of responsibility for the group on more people, and just helping the group as a whole, refocus on why are we here? Why do we want to be in community? And are these the people I want to be in community with? Because there may be some people that are like, no, I think I belong more with people who, just really don't like AA. And that's fine. There are lots of groups for that. And so if that's the direction, then we're going to put some things so that you can find those groups. And for people who want to be even more of AA, who may think that this group isn't enough AA, there are groups to go to. So, having the appropriate links and descriptions on what's expected to be a part of this group, and I think is going to help out quite a bit.
Yes, Bree, I did miss you, actually. You're one of the people, I think, who left me some sort of a message. I don't know if it was a text message, a voicemail message, or something. Mm-hmm. And I'm so sorry, Bree, to get back to you. And I was afraid I didn't see you here. And I thought, oh, shoot, she'd given up on me. Because I didn't return the text message or something.
Yeah.
But sorry. Anyway, I'm glad that you're here. We actually had a nice crowd here today. And I'm glad that you went on a nice bike ride too. I had a nice bike ride last week. I went 3 miles, which for me is a long time. Actually, I had to walk some of the way back.
Wow.
Yeah, on the trolley trail that we have here, you wouldn't know what that is, I guess, but it's an old, it's an old trolley trail, and they turned it into a bike trail. Anyway, it goes on a gentle slope downhill from my house to like about 3 miles away. But on the way back, it's a gentle slope uphill, and it's a really difficult thing coming back. So I had to walk a lot on the way back, but it was good exercise. I enjoyed it. It was good to be out again.
Good.
Yeah. So anyway, again, I take us off topic. So, but
it's totally fine. Yeah, we're winding down, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Yes, thank you everyone, and thank you, Angela. I really appreciate what you've done and bringing your experience to this, because it's really needed. I wasn't doing anybody any favors by not moderating. That's not a good thing to do. You got to have some boundaries if you're going to have especially a recovery group on social media. And thank you for
2,400 people.
2,400 people. Yeah.
Yeah.
From all different parts of the world, and from different phases of recovery and different
development. And oh man,
totally,
it's a recipe for a disaster right now. So.
And it was good to understand that even engineers have this problem. I would never have imagined.
They can be the worst. Oh my
hilarious.
Gosh, that's for a totally different podcast on a different day. But my gosh, you would think that yeah, they can be such babies.
So it's just not unique to us. And even the guy from Recovery Elevator said even his little community, it's not heaven all the time. They have to watch it too. So he told me, said, yeah, it's just the way it is. You gotta have rules.
Do it. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, take care, everyone.
Yeah, it was good to be here, everybody. We'll be back again next week for another exciting topic. I don't know what we'll be talking about, but it'll be good. All right, everybody. Until then, y'all take care, be well. We'll be back again. Boy, I don't know what's wrong with me. We'll be back again next week. Take care. Bye-bye.